I asked a question about Lord Shiva. I wanted to know Lord Shiva's position. And for some reason, Prabhupada answered so strongly, almost in anger, that I would bring up Lord Shiva's name. And I was told later on the reason that he had replied so strongly was because this was quite a regular question that came up amongst hippies because of the drug culture, because of what Prabhupada had seen in New York and San Francisco, and how many young people were smoking chillums and saying this is Shiv Prasad or whatever, this is. And so Prabhupada very strongly said, he is not God. He is like chief of police. He is designated authority. He said he is not the supreme authority. Krishna is like this, so he was he was really giving me the sauce when I brought up the question about Lord Shiva. That's also stuck in my mind since then. Another time we were walking close to a field where there were some donkeys and some horses, and Kulashikar started shouting out, Hare Krishna, really loudly to try and draw the attention of the animals in the field. And Prabhupada said, they don't have the ears to hear. So they cannot appreciate, even you chant at the top of your voice, they cannot appreciate, they don't have the proper ears to hear. And Kulashikar said, but Lord Chaitanya, he went through the Dandakaranya forest and he was chanting to all the animals, he said. And then Prabhupada smiled and said, well, maybe if you chant loud enough, they may hear something.
There's a story when Prabhupada was walking around the lake one time. This was before the lake here at Bhaktivedanta Manor was cleared. Pointing from the far side of the lake, Prabhupada indicated a big mound of brambles and nettles and weeds. And Prabhupada said, this should be cleared. So over the next week it was cleared, and underneath this big pile of weeds and overgrown vegetation, we found a landing stage. It wasn't apparent. And later that summer, after it had been repaired and rebuilt, Srila Prabhupada sat down there by the side of the lake, looking at the lake, and he said, we should build an island and have a temple of Mahavishnu in the middle of the lake. And he described, as a child, some of the temples which were surrounded by water in the ghats. They'd have kirtan from boats. So he said, you should also have kirtan from the boats around the temple in the middle of the lake. Of course, the council being as restrictive as they are, we couldn't even get permission to put a fountain in the middle of the lake. What to speak of a temple. At that time Prabhupada was reminiscing about his childhood, particularly this pastime of having kirtan in boats.
I remember one time that we were having prasadam. Prabhupada was taking prasadam in his room, and Jamuna was cooking. It was Malati and Jamuna. I know that Malati was running up and down because Prabhupada liked his puris when they popped, so they had to be hot. So I remember there was this whole kind of shuffling up and down the stairs with these hot puris. So I was kind of fascinated, so I popped my head around the corner, and it was Malati. Malati was saying to Prabhupada, she was saying to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, how many puris can you eat, And because she brought, I don't know how many puris she brought to Prabhupada, she brought him a lot of puris. And Prabhupada was as she would bring the puris, Prabhupada was respecting the prasadam. And so anyway, when she came to like this final puri, she was thinking, how many more times can I go up and down? So she said to Prabhupada, how many puris can you eat? And Prabhupada just looked up and said, more than you can make, like that. I remember his eyes got really big, and he just laughed. And I remember looking at it, it was like a cowherd boy. Somehow Prabhupada at that time, he was just so, like he was very ecstatic. He was kind of hitting himself on his knee, and he said, more than you can make.
There was one incident, again this is to do with the town of Reading. There was a Mr. Prajapati, And this was actually the same, as far as I can recall, the same evening after we left John Lennon's estate. George Harrison's Friar Park in Henley. We went to this Mr. Prajapati's house. And the idea was that Prabhupada would take some milk and maybe some halava and a little bit of puri, and then we'd go back to Berry Place. But when we got there, and all the other devotees were already there, because there was only a few of us actually went to George Harrison's house that evening. Mr. Prajapati and his wife were very expert in serving prasadam. So he asked Srila Prabhupada what he would like, and Prabhupada said, "I'll take a little milk." And then Mr. Prajapati said, "Would you like something with the milk?" He said, so Prabhupada said, "You prepared something?" He said, "Yes. We have a little, if you like, some sabji and some puri and some halava." So Prabhupada said, "All right," because Prabhupada actually liked to take especially halava and puris with his milk here in the UK. But as Prabhupada was being served, they were bringing in other preparations as well. And so Prabhupada was saying, "Oh, what is this? This looks nice." And he would take a little bit of this, and then something else would come, and then something else would come. And all of a sudden there was about 15 or 20 different preparations in front of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, you have tricked me." And Mr. Prajapati said, "Yes." He said, "What could we do? We felt so honored you were coming to our house. We cooked a huge feast." And Prabhupada said, "But what about for everyone here?" And Mr. Prajapati said, "Yes, no, we've cooked sufficient quantity to feed everybody." And he said, so Srila Prabhupada said, "All right, so everybody should eat too." So we all sat down, and this is like 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. And we all took this massive feast. And next morning, Srila Prabhupada wanted to go into, he didn't stay. He didn't leave to go to Berry Place. He stayed in Mr. Prajapati's house. And we stayed in somebody else's house. And next morning we had to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning because Prabhupada wanted to go back to have darshan of Radhalandanishwara. And I remember it was very difficult for all of us to get up after staying up so late and eating so much.
So next time Prabhupada visited, many devotees had gone to the airport, and I felt, well, I'll stay here and I'll make sure that everything's nice here for the arrival. I won't go this time. And so I did that, but while I was organizing everything, I went and made a fruit offering for Prabhupada. And when he arrived, the devotees all came after the greeting. They all came up into his room. And I came in quite quickly after with this nice silver plate of all these different fruits that I prepared. And there's a little room in front of the table, so I offered the prasadam to the Boga at that time, and then paid my obeisances. And as I was on the floor, Malati piped up, "Srila Prabhupada, Bhajahari has taken a wife since you were here last." And of course, I was struggling for 2 years to remain brahmachari, and in my mind at that time I'd fallen down, I'd got married. You know how we used to sometimes think that getting married was a step backwards in spiritual life and all that paranoia and things. So I'm very, I'm thinking, "Oh, Malati, why? Give us a break." But she said it with so much enthusiasm and joy that everyone said Jai, and as I looked up, all embarrassed, Srila Prabhupada was looking at me and he smiled and he said, "That's all right. One wife, that is brahmachari life." So I felt again. Prabhupada was always encouraging,